afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Spring 2025 New York Times Speaker Series, featuring the business reporter Jordyn Holman with her session All-Consuming Retail Technology and the Attention Economy. My name is Jordyn Mendoza Farjan, and I am the Senior Program Coordinator here at the Office of Global Learning Initiatives. A friendly reminder to sign in, either if you're here for a Global Learning Medallion points, Honors College engagement points, extra credit from your professor, or whatever brought you to us. We're happy that you're here. Also a reminder, as you engage in today's session, we ask you to raise your hand. We do have microphones around the room. We want to make sure that we capture your engagement in our recording and also our Zoom link as well. All right. For the Global Learning Medallion students, just a friendly reminder that you had to do a screenshot of your sign-in, and today's session is a 2-point opportunity. Also, if you would like to learn more about the initiatives that we have in the Global Learning Office, including the Peace Corps Prep Program, the Global Learning Medallion Program, and Millennium Fellowship, make sure that you visit us at the front table. We do have our entire staff here today, and we'll be happy to answer your questions as well. And also, all our TTR sessions are always linked to a New York Times article just to continue the discussion after the session. In today's session is actually linked to Jordyn's journalist page. So you would like to read more about her articles and also her expertise, you may go to go.fiu.edu/TTR0311. And this is due to the formal partnership between FIU and the New York Times that gives free digital access to all students. So if you haven't signed up for your free digital access, you may go to access.nyt.com. Also, today's session connects with SDG number 9, which reminds us about industry innovations and infrastructure by building resilient infrastructure, promoting inclusive and sustainable industries, and fostering innovation. To learn more about this SDG, including targets, indicators, and the goal progress, you may go to go.fiu.edu/SDG. And now, to introduce Jordyn, please join me in welcoming the leader behind global learning at FIU and the founding director of our office, Assistant Vice President of Global Learning Initiatives, Dr. Hilary Lander.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here, and thanks so much to our team who makes this happen every week. I have the honor of introducing you to our speaker, Jordyn Holman. Jordyn is an experienced business reporter who covers the largest American retail companies and the consumers who drive the U.S. economy. With a focus on the changing landscape of retail business models, consumer behavior, and the influence of culture and identity on purchasing decisions, Jordyn brings a unique and insightful perspective to the table. Throughout her career, Jordyn has written extensively about major corporations from Wall Street to Main Street, often addressing the intersection of race, class, and gender in the workforce and among consumers. Her work has been recognized for its impact, and she has earned accolades from both the Society for Advancing Business Editing and Writing and the National Association of Black Journalists. Jordyn has contributed regularly to Marketplace Radio and has written for prestigious outlets such as Bloomberg News and Bloomberg Business Week. She's also made frequent appearances on Bloomberg TV. Originally from Chicago, she holds a bachelor's degree in print and digital journalism from the University of Southern California and currently resides in New York City. My team and I have had the pleasure of spending some time with Jordyn in the past 24 hours, and coming as a veteran of welcoming New York Times journalists, I can say with complete conviction that she's a great listener, she's honestly interested in your point of view, and she wants to incorporate your strengths into her reporting. In other words, Jordyn is a true global learner. So please join me in welcoming Jordyn Holman as she shares her insights into the evolving retail landscape and its broader impact on society.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, here's my clicker. Thank you so much for that kind intro. I'm Jordyn. So good to be here in Miami with you guys today. And we're going to chat about retail and feeling overwhelmed and TikTok and all the things. But also, please, please, please ask questions. I want to, like Dr. Lamfer said, I want to hear what you guys are thinking, and we'll have it be a discussion. So, all-consuming retail technology in the attention economy. So sometimes when I cover, or I tell people I cover retail, they're like, oh, that feels soft, like it's about dresses and shopping and all that kind of stuff. And if you feel that way, that's cool, but I hope at the end of this, I will show you why it's very, very important, how it shapes how we think about ourselves, how it drives the economy, and how we are feeling overwhelmed by it and what can be done. So we're going to cover a lot of ground. Okay, so I work at the New York Times. I am one of 1,200 reporters at the Times. I'm specifically on their business desk. So we have 150 reporters on the business desk covering all sorts of elements of our economy and companies. We have someone who just covers Elon Musk. We have people who just cover Meta. I'm trying to think of other interesting things. I mean, we have someone who just covers like warehousing and all that kind of stuff. I cover retail, the big companies. And then also it's the Times, so we have spelling bee and cooking and all the fun stuff. Okay, so this some things that we'll cover. Okay, so I want to hear, where do you all shop? When I say where's the last place you bought something? Yeah. Shein.
Oh, Shein.
Yeah, Shein. I've written about Shein.
Oh, Amazon.
Amazon. I've written about Amazon, of course.
Depop.
Reformation.
Reformation, Depop. I've shopped both of those places and have also written there, or written about it. So I wanted to just kind of give a sense of what I cover. I cover all those spots as well as Walmart. I've traveled to Bentonville, Arkansas, where they're based. Shein, they are based kind of all over the place, but they do some warehousing in Los Angeles. I've traveled there for a story. Temu is down here, owned by a Chinese company, but they have a lot of presence here, like with workers in Los Angeles. And then Target, of course, has been in the news a lot, have traveled to Minneapolis for them. So companies that you have shopped at, I am writing about, I am thinking about how they get you to buy things. I'm talking to their executives of why they make the decisions they make, talking to their store workers who are interacting with you. So that's kind of the breadth of the retail industry. And these are stories I've read. Okay, so kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, that sometimes people think, oh, retail is not like tech or building things or whatnot. Like, why is it important? And this is how I think about it. Retail and shopping is ingrained to who we are as Americans specifically. When you think about the whole conversation around inflation and the economy and how that kind of shaped the election, a big part was what? People can't afford eggs. It's so expensive. People can't afford, you have a price in your head for what you think it should be, and now it's a new price when you go to the grocery store. Or why are those jeans that price? I'm going to go across the street. Like, it's how we think about things and make decisions. It's also so important to the economy. I think so much so that it's like water or fish, but like in the U.S., the consumer economy underpins how this is all working. And so when you think back to the beginning of COVID, when we were stuck at home and nobody was spending, that was a huge stressor because we need to spend. Like, that is actually a horrible thing when we as Americans don't spend. And when I'm talking to economists about like, okay, what's happening with our economy, they'll look at like different levels of things, like can people buy homes? What's the joblessness rate? Are people applying for jobs? And then they're always thinking about how's consumer spending doing. And that's like the last domino to fall. It kind of makes sense. It's like we can like not spend things in other ways, or we cannot do other things. Like we might have to like switch jobs or whatnot. But the last thing that will try to do is or the last thing that we can't do is spend. And so when you have a whole lot of Americans not spending like you saw, well, maybe not you guys, but that happened in 08, 09, that was kind of the last domino to fall. And that is why our retail economy is very, very important, and why companies who sell us things, when they're on calls with analysts, they're often being asked questions, how's the consumer doing? Are they feeling good? Are they buying the high-end thing, or are they trading down to something less expensive? All of those are indicators of how America's doing economically. Oh, and I guess I should go back. I just love this. I was at a museum once, and it was, I shopped there 4 a.m., and I was like, oh yeah, we all do care about, there's a reason why we all picked what we put on today, how we styled our hair, all of that. We're making decisions, signaling to people who we are with what we buy. Okay, just some other big numbers about the retail industry that I didn't know until I started covering it, just because you don't think about the scale. So 70% of our economy, like I've been saying, is driven by what we buy. And it's not just shirts and shoes and whatnot. It's also spending on healthcare, all those type of things. But it's 70%. So when we start shifting our behavior, that can show up in a big way in the numbers. Speaking back to COVID, that was one of those big times that everyone shifted. You have 08, 09, and definitely last year. And so when you kind of just see things, it has a big effect. The retail industry in the U.S. contributes to $5.3 trillion. And if you're like me, I'm I've never seen a trillion. What's a trillion? That's almost as much as Japan's GDP and Germany's GDP. Mexico, for example, has 2 trillion. So we're spending more than full countries and competing with full countries just based off of what we are spending. So it is a huge deal. And then I think this is just also good context. Walmart, who's been in a Walmart? Never been in a Walmart? Okay, you've been in, okay, I was wow, I was expecting all the hands to go up. So Walmart is not only the largest retailer in the U.S., and we might get into Amazon. Someone up there said Amazon. But right now, Walmart is still the largest retailer in the U.S., and it is the largest employer in the U.S. They have 1.6 million people who work at Walmart. That's not just in the stores, that's the campus, or they call it the campus, people who work in corporate. So people who are deciding what's going to be on the shelves, those people are called buyers. There's people who work on just their app, people using AI to figure out how to see what you're buying, make that smarter. So that their workforce is 1.6 million in America. They obviously have a global landscape, and that's 2.2 million people across the world that they employ. So I think it says a lot that one of the largest employer in America is a retailer. And then just some other stats, and also some of my other coverage. A lot of it, we also look at how jobs are trending within retail. That says a lot about where we are in the country as well. There's a stat I was just looking at that of the job losses in February, the biggest one came from retail. Then you start thinking about questions, what does that mean? So retail is a good indicator of what's to come. So moving into the e-commerce. So I mean, who's bought something online? Okay, great. So when I was preparing for this, I was like, man, what was the start of e-commerce? Because day to day, I'm writing about just we have e-commerce and how do these companies sell you more online. There's the balance between sales within the store and sales when you're on your laptop or on your phone. But if we just wind back, how did it all start? Because before, every day, if you needed something, you walked in a store. Mind blowing, even to me. Wow. Okay, so it's cool. The Times is awesome, guys, and I hope everyone has the subscription because when I had this question, I went to the Times and checked. We have a Times machine. You can look at all the articles from back in the day. So I went to the Times machine, and I found this story from August 1994, this grainy photo, and attention shoppers, the internet is open. And it is just an article documenting the first purchase on the internet. And I just think that's like a kind of cool timesing thing. You know, we're there trying to like document these moments in time. And I'm sure when the person was assigned the story, it's like, okay, I'm assigned the story about this like cool little project that they're doing, not knowing that this is going to fundamentally change how we buy things. So that was August 1994, and the first thing that was purchased was a Sting CD. Does anyone know Sting? Yeah, like it's like half and half. Yeah, even I was like, what is their song? So yeah, so that's Sting. So Sting CD. A CD of Sting. And yeah, and when you read the story, it's just this random guy, like he was 25, he had heard about this thing called the internet, and he put in his credit card information. I guess this album had just come out, and it's like, let's see if I can get it. Crazy, like moments in history. It's like you definitely don't know they're happening, but there it is. And so I thought that was interesting because the next year was when Amazon started. So Amazon, based in Seattle, Jeff Bezos was just a guy in Seattle in a garage tinkering away, and he opened up Amazon.com in 1995, so the next year. So the mid-90s. What's interesting is, especially when it comes to technology, there's a thing called like first adopters. People who are just so techie, they want to try out new things. Personally, I am not that person. Let me know how it is, and then I'll figure it out. But like the Amazons, this group of folks, they were the first adopters. They were seeing like, hey, we have this technology. We as a country really like shopping. Maybe there's like this in-between here. And I think that's like a cool thing. But a lot of retailers were like, no way. We get millions of people walking through our doors every day. Why would we tinker with this when we're making billions of dollars by having a store, setting it up where people live, and people drive up and walk in? So for a long time, it was just a side project. But yeah, so think about like the mid-90s as like when it actually started. Obviously, that world has changed. All of you guys raise your hand and say you have bought something. And so I started covering the retail industry in 2019 and thinking about like, you don't know when it's like transition moments. Looking back, that was such a transition moment. I got on the beat January 2019. Yeah, we were shopping. I was sharing earlier, like, this is back when I felt like if I'm buying something online, I need to be on a laptop. I need to be seated. I need to be calm. I got to pull out my credit card. I wasn't buying things on my phone. I need to see, like, that was that time. Most of the major retailers had websites, obviously, but when I talked to them, it was like, when you have their earnings, it's like, we had these sales in our store, massive, maybe 85, 90% of their sales, probably more. And then, yeah, we have this website. You can purchase. It'll get to you in 4 days, 5 days. You should just walk in the store. Like, that was the time. Shein existed. I'm sure you guys didn't really shop there. It was more of like, if you're thinking fast fashion, that was Fashion Nova, or even like at H&M. That was a big conversation about them disrupting the market. Walmart obviously existed, but they weren't competing head to head with Amazon like that. So that was like the 2019, and part of that was that decade was a lot, like we saw Instagram come onto the scene. We saw TikTok became more important, and so these smaller companies, like the guys who were sitting in that last slide, there was a lot of guys and gals sitting around being like, hey, it's so expensive to open a store. Like, I don't have money for that, but I do have Instagram. I can make a website. Let me just like set up a website and start selling you stuff. So that's how you get the Warby Parkers of the world. That's how you get a lot of other ones that I'm blanking on right now. But like, they are just D2C companies. And that was kind of a special category of itself. It was like novel. It's like, whoa, you can sell things to people on the internet and they trust it and they're going to keep coming back. So that was the 2010s. It took, 15 years, 20 years to really like become part of our society. And sometimes that's how change happens. But then COVID. So February 2020 or March 2020, I've been on the beat for a year. I've been talking to all of these executives about and it was funny, y'all. They would be like, we've never faced so much disruption like in 2019. Everything's moving so quick. And then the pandemic happens. And they're like, everything I just said was a lie. This is the worst thing we've ever seen. It's like, yes, for so many reasons. And remember, stores shut down quickly. I was at Bloomberg at the time. We did a chart about how many stores in America were closed and what days, and it became something like 3 million stores have just gone dark. Never in this country have we seen something like that. And then what's left? The internet. We're all just at home. We still need things. Consumer spending is still super important. All these companies, that whole business model is to get you to buy something, has to get you to buy something. So the internet no longer becomes a cool thing that those guys over there are doing. It becomes the thing. It is the only thing. Yes, there were some companies who just were like, I'm not doing that. That website is not what I'm doing. Companies like TJ Maxx and Marshalls, their whole thing is have a good time in the store. We'll lose the money right now. But every other company was like, we need to figure out this internet thing. We need to figure out how to change our supply chains, our warehouses, to get people those products, not in 5 days, not in 4 days, but we got to compete with Amazon. Because Amazon was set up well. I remember getting random stuff on Amazon that I was just like, because I want to spend, I'm an American. So all the other companies had to think about that. And then going back to my I got to get my laptop out. This was the time when mobile shopping changed too. And this is a cool confluence because I have this article up here about TikTok. What else were we doing when we were stuck inside? Scrolling. We were just on the internet. We couldn't see our friends. Our friends were here. Remember Clubhouse? There was all sorts of new social media floating around. And that's when I actually became a early adopter. I was like, give me the link, whatever, let's talk. And so you have social media becoming the dominant force of communication, with online sales becoming the dominant force of commerce. Then you get social commerce, and that's really what pushed companies to adopt and invest in online shopping. I could imagine if COVID-19 never happened, we would be having a conversation about oh yeah, well maybe still I'll think about the website. Oh, TikTok, what's TikTok for? It's the disruption and the change that forces decisions and decision makers to make them very quickly, and that's what we were seeing during that time. So then the world changed. We were all online, and I thought these stats would be helpful to just kind of see how much it changed. So TikTok, I know I've told the story, but I just think it's really interesting, obviously because I'm a storyteller, that in 2019 when I was calling companies asking, what's your TikTok strategy? I'm like, TikTok strategy. I'm not spending millions of dollars. No one's on TikTok. It's not proven. Everyone's on Instagram, all this kind of stuff. But then how quickly that changed once you saw that TikTok was a dominant force and how quickly companies can react to that stuff. So TikTok, we were just on TikTok, as we all remember, because we all lived that life. And then in 2023, TikTok was like, wait a second. We don't want you getting an advertisement for this hair, the coolest new hair tie, or these pants that would look great on the vacation. We don't want you seeing that and then leaving the site. The whole thing about social media is keeping you there as long as possible. So in 2023, TikTok opened TikTok Shop, where you can shop directly on the app without leaving it. So who has shopped on TikTok Shop? Okay, two. Okay, so according to this stat, more hands should be up, and maybe they will because the stat is for 2025, but it's expected that at least half of the people on TikTok will make a purchase on TikTok this year. And for context, there's 170 million people in America on TikTok, so that's a lot of millions, tens of millions of people making purchases directly through TikTok. And then we're not even talking about you see something and then you're like, okay, I actually do want to pull out my laptop and look at this, and you end up buying it because you saw it on TikTok. That's a whole other number. Instagram. Do we still use Instagram in here? Yeah? Okay, cool. Yeah! Millennial Instagram. Okay, so I also thought this was interesting in 2019 when I joined the Beat. Instagram rolled out the checkout function, which is just so like air and water now that you forgot before there wasn't an easy way to just purchase something on the app. But they did that like right before the pandemic. And then I think the stat is like crazy. So this year it's expected that companies will advertise or spend $103 billion to advertise on social media. So when you're scrolling, seeing the reviews on, like seeing people's takes on Love is Blind or White Lotus or whatever, and then like in between, you see like the thing for the wig or whatever it is today, and it's always the same one for like a week. That is a company paying for that placement. It's not, this is different from an influencer saying, hey, this is the coolest new hat or whatnot. This is a company like placing it in there so you're just scrolling. And it's expected there's been $103 billion, and numbers aren't helpful unless there's context to them. So that is up 175% since just 2021. So yeah, they got us. They have their TikTok strategy now. It took 5 years, but they got us. And then just some other stats for comparison. Obviously, people are still walking into stores and buying things. I think I have like that caveat. Yeah. So 80% of sales are still taking place in stores, which I think is like a good reminder. But the growth of online sales compared to going in a store is just like way higher. So for companies, they're seeing those numbers and they're like, we should probably invest over in this high growth area. People will find the stores if they need to find the stores. And so here's some comparisons. Like Walmart, 20% of their sales came, or 20% of the growth from e-commerce, or came from e-commerce. So each 4 times a year, every quarter, companies release like, this is how much money we got. And so just a few weeks ago, these companies released this. So Walmart was like, we had the best Christmas ever. We had a record Christmas. Everyone loves us. But here, we'll break it down for you. Everyone was still coming to us, but where we saw the growth was in e-commerce. Sales went up 20% just from people being on their phones, shopping online, getting the delivery. That was 20% compared to it only went up 4.6% from people walking in the store. Target, same thing. The e-commerce growth is way higher than someone walking in the store. And Macy's, I'm sorry, y'all, I forgot to put that in there. Macy's the same thing. It's 20%, and then, it's 12%, and then it's like 0.2% growth in their store. And who's been in Macy's recently? Like in the store? Okay, you're the 0.2. Okay. Did we get any? Okay. In the store? In the store, see? Anyone online, Macy? Okay. I'm like doing a social experiment right now. But yeah, so Macy's a little less. But yeah, it's just, this is to illustrate the growth is in the social media and online. Okay, so here's the thing. Technology has just made it easier than ever to shop. It's very easy to click something compared to putting on clothes, putting on shoes, going in your car, or if you're in New York, figuring out when the A train's coming, then realizing it's on weekend service, then it's just so much easier. But with that, there's always like every reaction has action has a reaction. It's overwhelming, and that is when I come in and start thinking about how do I capture that. How do I not just say, hey, this is what these companies are doing, these are the numbers. What's the impact on us? Here I kind of describe just my process. Like when I'm working on stories, I'm talking to the executives. I'm talking to analysts who are looking at these numbers. I'm talking to people like you who happen to be in a store, and I'm walking up to you and it's like, hey, do you have a few seconds to chat? I'm a journalist. I'm talking about this. I want to hear your perspective. I'm talking to a range of people because I want to understand the impact that all of these decisions are having on folks. So that's a little bit about my process. And so when it comes, and I'll write about like the big things like Walmart made this much money in holiday, to like very specific things, like why are we all wearing Crocs? The Crocs story I wrote was like one of my best stories this year. Y'all love Crocs. And like, yeah, anywho, who has Crocs? Okay. I purchased Crocs after I wrote the story because I was like, I guess I should I guess I should use what I write about. And they're comfortable, but I don't wear them outside because it's New York and that's dirty. So here's like a range of things. So when I'm thinking specifically about overwhelm, there's so much happening. It really does depend on who you're talking to, how it's filtered, how they're feeling. So I talked to this one woman in Houston, had a fun conversation with her. She was like, I am trying to not be advertised to. She, on TikTok, which I learned from her, you can unpersonalize your ads. So she loved like perfume and nail polish and all that. So she unpersonalized her ads with the hope that she would get like advertisements for fishing rods, like something she wants nothing with, you know. She also like deleted all the text from the brands that they would send her, including like her local boba shop. Like she was like, I don't want you to find me. And her whole thing was, you know, you're already getting emails and texts for the bills you have to pay for like the real life stuff. People would be more receptive if these companies were reaching out less. It gives greedy, it gives capitalism. Then I talked to a CEO who runs a company trying to find a solution. Like we have too much stuff in our closet, like buying that next thing won't make you feel better, it just will make you feel overwhelmed. And so her take was it's unrealistic to try to get brands to moderate us or for them to do less. We have to do less. Poshmark, which is an online reseller, talked to one woman who does like millions of dollars in selling on Poshmark each year. She gets really jazzed about like the new changes the company's making. And when I say new changes the company's making, I do mean the changes that will help them make more money and sell you more things. But she was like, hey, this is the business model. This is why you're here for. So like that's different from the woman in Houston who's like, I don't want to be here anymore. And then I talked to a beauty industry executive just about the importance of TikTok. This was around last year, but also kind of this year, how TikTok was going to be banned. And it was so fascinating talking to these brands that advertise on TikTok. They were unmoved, they were unconcerned. They're like, they're not going to take away TikTok. I make all my money on TikTok. You guys spend all your days on TikTok. And it's just really important to talk to all these different people so I can start piecing the story together. When I'm like going into story, I have a good sense of what somebody's going to say based off of like what their title is and where they live or those kind of things. But I usually get surprised that someone takes that approach or has that perspective. So that's why it's really important to be out there. For me, talking to people, having my thoughts challenged, challenging their thoughts, and that's how I'm able to capture. We're all feeling overwhelmed in our own way, and people have different strategies to it, or people are just like, hey, this is who we are, try to find wellness elsewhere kind of thing. So that's like the importance of reaching out. And these are kind of various stories of how I'm trying to capture the overwhelm. This woman to the left, that's the woman who was like, it gives greedy, it gives capitalism. We had a great conversation. In the back are all of the perfume bottles she's bought just on social media. She has 80. They sit in her closet. I was like, what are we doing here? She was like, I layer it, and I was like, okay, but 80. Okay. But she was like, hey, I want to fix things, but I'm up against this big algorithm machine. How can I do that? And so we went with the headline, what does it take to quit shopping? Mute, delete, unsubscribe. Yes. Did she smell good? I actually interviewed her over the phone and like Zoom. I know I should have traveled to Houston, honestly. That's a good question. I feel like she did, right? But it was also like funny, she was also saying she bought a cake decorating kit because she was like, oh, I'm going to make my own birthday cake. And it's going to be an investment. I'll make my friends' birthday cakes. Did she open up the box? No, she did not make. And it's like those kind of moments that she was like, this is too much. What am I doing here? And within this story, I didn't just like talk to people like her who was like, I'm overwhelmed. I talked to marketing executives, present it to them. Hey, I just talked to this woman who has 80 bottles of perfume. Do you not feel any like responsibility for sending less text, or like, what do you see your role in it? And I like had a thought of what he was saying. It was completely opposite. He saw himself as a solution. You know, they're not on TikTok advertising. It's like direct text messaging advertising. So you kind of see different perspectives only by talking to people. Woman in Poshmark, that's the one who's super jazzed about the changes. I've spent hours watching her videos, her live shopping videos. She's very good. I would only tell you her name if you're trying to spend money. So I won't say it. You can just like Google it. And then I've written about Amazon. Amazon, just like the rest of the world, is trying to get things to you faster. So I've taken tours in Amazon warehouses that just fulfill same-day service. So when you order something at 10 and it shows up at your house at 4, there's specific facilities that handle that. It is wild, okay? And I went to one. The whole story here is I tried to order something same day from my apartment in Brooklyn, and I was not given the option yet. And then I was tinkering around with other things and trying to order it to my friend's house and then my parents' house and all the sorts of things. And they were like, yeah, we haven't built out your area yet. So it could be fun to like go on Amazon and see if you get same day delivery. But once again, if you're not trying to buy anything, don't do that. Okay. And then obviously there's other like things that don't feel retail related, but retailers have to respond to it. So anything around GLP-1s, Ozempic, retailers are trying to get in on that. So GNC, the Vitamin Shop, you know, at least I think of them as like the vitamins that you need, like iron and whatnot. But they were seeing so many people are on GLP-1s, that's changing how we're eating, that's changing, you lose nutrients when you're not eating on this. So they're like, hey, I think we could contribute to this conversation, and we should be selling the supplements that are helpful for GLP-1. Important caveat here about talking to a lot of people. After getting off the phone with them, I immediately called like some doctors to make sure if that was like healthy and ethical and right and all of that. So all of the stories, you know, it's never single source. It's always trying to figure out who else I should be talking to, trying to get the full picture, trying to be creative about who I reach out to. I don't talk to doctors usually for retail, but that was a challenge in the story that I needed to challenge myself and think about who's the right person. I shouldn't be calling just the regular people I call. This is a different topic. So that's also how we approach it. I quoted myself. So I like have posted an article. It's called like there's this thing called Times Insider that sometimes the Times interviews reporters, and so this was from there. And this is how I like approach reporting as well. I'm trying to balance what a company tells me, what executives say they stand for, who they think their consumers are, with what shoppers have to say. I will often stand outside a store and ask shoppers, what do you think of this brand? If what they say is the exact opposite of what the executive says, that's where the story is. Because don't you want to read a story that's like, has some tension? I do. Okay. Yeah, and then we play around with different formats. It's not always going to be 1,200 words. I'm fully aware. There's this journalism phrase that the only person who's going to read your full article is your mom. Unfortunately, sometimes my mom doesn't read my full article, y'all. So I'm like, Mom, just what do you like the very end? And then she's like, so we acknowledge that at the New York Times, and we have different formats. So we have a live format. So when something's breaking, like tariffs, we could just do snippets. Like I got a quote from David's Bridal CEO. Let's put in the live blog. And for hopefully the idea is for when you're coming to the app, when you're coming to the website, you don't have to sit down and like carve out 15 minutes of the time. You just get what you need. You can scroll further if you want, but you should get the top thing. Then we do interactives. Here is a screenshot from the story I did on Shark Tank. I did write a long written story, but I was like, hey, listen, this is a story about a TV show. We should have some clips from the TV show. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to figure out how to show you guys the clips in the clips, but just know this is a clip. So we play with videos. And I think even more today in this very complicated world, we are doing more explainer journalism, the kind of like what you need to know about tariffs, what you need to know about Doge kind of things, trying to put ourselves in the mindset of someone who is coming to us. It is my job to sit through and sift through a lot of stuff. It is not your job to make that really hard, so we're trying to make it easy, distill it down, things like 5 points you need to know kind of things. And then newsletters. I really love newsletters. I just realized the irony here. I've been talking about how like our inboxes are flooded with stuff, but the Times newsletter, worth your time. The other things from the companies, the brands, but this newsletter, but also acknowledging we're trying to find people throughout their day. If you're commuting, I guess in New York on the train, very easy to like read the newsletter before you get to work. We do evening newsletters at the end of the day, like, hey, you were working. This is what happened in your country kind of thing. So I contribute to all of these type of formats. And then, so when I always want to be like conscientious when I cover something, when I call someone, what does that mean? Because when I started out in journalism, when someone would be like, make calls, I'm like, to who? And say what? So here's just some like resources that I use in my time when I am reporting. I reference, like I said earlier, old New York Times articles. I want to see what's been written. I want to see how we wrote about it. I want to see, to understand the context where we were at the time they were writing it. It's helpful to revisit. The phrase in journalism is read the clips, understand where we came. For stats, like the stats about the $103 billion on advertising, Adobe Analytics is super, super helpful. And this is for not even if you're a journalist, it's if you want to understand business and change over time stuff, Adobe Analytics monitors all e-commerce sales. So me and Adobe are best friends during Black Friday weekend when I need up to the date sales, traffic, how's that trending? Is it a bigger Black Friday, smaller? Are people buying more groceries? Are people buying more toys or shoes? What they can get granular like that. eMarketer focuses a lot on advertisement, how the advertising world is changing, how it's all happening on social media now. And then Marketplace, if you tune on Fridays, you can keep hearing my voice, or throughout the week, they are just really helpful for translating what is happening on Wall Street and then the stock market and the Fed and things that make you feel like you want to have your eyes glaze over. But really translating it to this is what matters to you and why it matters. And I still listen to Marketplace to make sure that I'm up to date and taking in all the information that we get in correctly. So I wanted to just shout those out. And yeah, any questions?
My question, Marvin. My question was with the future, which what do you and the executives think when it comes to online shopping? Will malls and in-store shopping go obsolete? Because my thing is, when we put up our hands, it seemed like only a few of the older generations still going inside, whereas the younger generation, I know my nephews and my younger cousins, they're not getting out the house. Mm-hmm. They just Amazon. But then I think about it, my mother and my grandma love Amazon too. Mm-hmm. So is it gonna go away, the malls and stores, or what? What's gonna happen?
Yeah, great question. So we as a country have way too many malls. We have the most small. I mean, we're the biggest consumer economy, but we also have so many malls. And I think what's happening now, and has been happening for 15 years, is that we're actually trying to get to this equilibrium where we have the right amount of stores. We're over-stored. We're here's a mall. 2 blocks later, there's another. We don't need that. And so what's happening is just trying to, in the business world, you would say right size, get to the right amount of stores. Stores will always have their purpose, is kind of the thought that executives have, and that online will always be for convenience. It saves you time, that kind of thing. But there's going to be times that you do want to do your Christmas shopping in a store, and there's Santa, and there's music. So the function of a store and why we would think to go to a store is changing as we just are using e-commerce more for convenience in the everyday. Is their thought. It could change.
So
yeah.
first of all, thank you so much for coming. It was really, really interesting to hear it because my background is business and marketing, so I was really invested in your story. I was listening to the Morning Brew daily, so sorry, not the New York Times.
I have good friends
But
at Morning
I
Brew.
think it's important to listen from different sources, and they were talking about economic growth and how the U.S. has been on that, I guess, spike of growth. But I was wondering if you could explain how that is measured, because yes, we do have people that are spending more money, but then we also have prices going up. So how does that, like, what's the relationship between there, right? 'Cause you do see the prices are going up, and then you also see that maybe they're spending the same amount of money, but maybe not for the same amount of products that they're getting. So I don't know if you could explain that relationship.
And prices like of the items are going up.
Correct.
Is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes.
So yes, this is like you asked a question that economists spend their whole career thinking about, which is great. No, I think right now what we're seeing is prices have gone up. They're not going up as much anymore. And the way that us consumers are reacting is, I only have this much money to spend. So then that's why you're spending less things in your cart. So an interesting metric that retailers have is average ticket price and average basket price. How much are your items? Did that price go up? And then did people put more stuff in their cart? For a long time, the price has gone up. People put less in their cart because we're trying to adjust to the fact that things are more expensive. In a time like 2020, late 2020, like after the initial jolt of the pandemic in 2021, both of those metrics were going up. The prices were still going up, but we're like, oh, we have extra money. We stayed at home. We weren't traveling. And so that was actually an anomaly that a lot of people just got used to. And when I say people, companies got used to. But now it's like we as consumers are reacting in a normal way. Prices are higher. I can only spend so much. So that's like the dichotomy. Yeah.
Okay, I had a quick question. So the whole time I was kind of wondering, I shop online, but I do it limited because I'm afraid of my credit card information being stolen.
Fair.
But me and a lot of my friends, like, I was wondering the process of research you've done on the checkout process, because I feel like my shopping goes up, one, if they have Apple Pay, because it like seamless, like I don't even have to think about it, and two, I'm like banned now, but Afterpay, like I have so many friends who are like in like credit card debt because they have like 30 Apple Pay. Afterpay charges up, so I was wondering if like those have increased the amount of online shopping.
Yes is the short answer. So there's two questions there. I will start with the cart element. So retailers are trying to make it super, super easy to shop. The thing in the industry is like one click, no click, like how easy and Amazon has mastered this, where they already have your credit card information. You do that and it's coming to you. And so a lot of other retailers are looking at that too. How can they do that? There is this phenomena called like abandoning the cart. Basically, when you think too long and you're like, I don't need that. They're trying to get rid of that. They don't want you to think. So that is a huge thing that they're trying to figure out. So acknowledging that, yes, you've been caught. To the second part about buy now, pay later, I have done reporting on it. I have talked to people who are in debt because of it. This is another one of those stories where it's like, let me talk to everyday people as well as the companies, as well as regulators. There's a whole conversation about regulation right now. The buy now, pay later companies are beefing with the credit card companies. It's a whole interesting thing. But that is, the companies would say that the percentage of people who default on the loans is actually less than what happens with credit cards. Their argument is credit cards are way worse. There's revolving credit with credit cards. It compounds, but technically with the buy now, pay later, each purchase is its own credit. The regulators would say, okay, let's look at all of the purchases, and maybe then that would be more of an apples to apples comparison with credit cards. So then I'm just, a long story short, acknowledging this is an active conversation in the retail industry right now, and a lot of people are talking about, yes, people, especially young people, Gen Z folks, are getting into debt over this, and the companies are trying to push back against being like defined in a negative light. Yeah. Okay.
Hi. What do you think the strain of like the rise of entrepreneurship is doing on like I guess because how he said like malls they're not I guess they're kind of not really obsolete because you said like what 80% of all sales is still done in store. But like what do you think the strain of like everybody trying to have their TikTok, shop and have people buy from them and be a independent person? How do you think that affects just the future? Is everything seem like it's moving in that direction, but is that going to be beneficial to us, or is that going to make things harder to get?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think all of that contributes to the overwhelm because it's not just what the companies are advertising, it's what all of the influencers who have built their whole careers on selling you more stuff. It's all coming together, right? Um, so let me just understand the question here. Like, what does it do to us? Makes me tired. I think there is a conversation about, is there a bubble? Is there like an influencer bubble? Like how much is this happening? I'm not sure if you guys have seen on TikTok the whole low buy, no buy 2025 conversation. So a lot of people are saying like no more. They're scrolling quickly past a lot of those influencers selling you stuff. But I think the reality is that our individual actions are a drop in the bucket for how our social commerce works. So the real question is, can enough of us push back before influencers or companies have to respond in kind? I don't think we're close to that. No. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi. My question is, I have two questions. One of them kind of ties into this one. The the first one is that who do you think has more responsibility in this attention economy? Like us as consumers, how can we, like, is it our job to try and like pay attention how companies trying to get our attention, or is it more the company's job like responsibility to try and do it in an ethical way and not push it onto us? Like, who do you think has more responsibility?
I feel like I can answer this in two ways. Like, what's the quicker answer? Like, I think it's on us if we want to see change quickly on that, like an individual decision being like, I don't want to purchase from this anymore. I'm in control of my resources and my finances. Like, that's the quick answer. But ethically, businesses should have ethics, and all of these big companies say they act ethically. Their shareholders aren't just the people investing in them. They're us. They're people shopping. But we have to signal to them what we want from them. I think a big thing anytime I'm approaching a company about a story about people feeling overwhelmed in one way, it's like, okay, but they're still shopping. We can actually see, they know how much time we spend on that app. And with AI, they know like everything about us. Like, you like to shop on Tuesday at 3, but you like picking it up on Thursday at 4, like all of those things. So I do think they're going to respond kind of to the earlier thing. They're going to respond to how we all behave, but for the most part, we're just behaving and contributing to all of the we're giving them attention, essentially.
Yeah, and my other question connecting to this is like, do you think boycotts work, or like when you talked about, I saw on this TikTok trend of like not buying, like boycotting Amazon, not ordering from Amazon, not buying from Starbucks. Like, do companies care? Like, does it work?
I think it really works. For people who want to boycott a retailer, you have to be smart about when you're going to boycott and make it hurt. Like, for example, a Black Friday. If mass people stay home or don't shop on their couch on Black Friday, they will take notice. That is their biggest shopping day of the year. I think the questions around like the current boycotts is there enough people contributing to it? And then a sustained one. I know like at the end of February, there was like the one-day boycott, but when it comes to boycotts, it's really a sustained effort so a company can feel it. Because when we're talking about a Walmart and Target, they're dealing with like millions of sales a day. And in one store, it can be 1 million sales. So you just have to think about scale when it comes to like boycotting. Yeah.
Mine isn't exactly a question. It kind of adds to the shop shopping cart question that was asked. I've noticed like a growing trend in companies where if you get to a point in the cart where you filled out your contact information and you just abandon the cart, they will send you an email saying, "Hey, we noticed you left this cart. Do you want to pick up on that?" So just something I wanted to kind of reflect on.
Yeah, they've been getting really, really smart about the technology.
Okay, so I have 3 questions.
Hit me. I'll try to remember all of them.
So it goes on all the questions that have been asked. So affiliated marketing is like the new door-to-door kind of salesman approach we had back in the 90s, 80s, where it's like, hey, do you want to purchase this hair dryer that I'm selling with? Or Mary Kay or various brands were doing it. Now we have affiliated links, which I'm a shopaholic and I know how to identify all the different affiliated links in Pinterest and social media, TikTok and stuff like that. And now that's a whole employment thing where companies are sending out their links and they're having all these, not really influencer, because in order to affiliate you just need an image and you need to get the person to click on it and stuff like that, which is more of a psychological thing. You try to make it look like a DIY thing and they click on it because they think it's a Pinterest pin, and then boom, you're in Amazon and it's like a direct link to it and stuff like that. How is that changing like the corporate world in the sense of like, hey, we're gonna have these affiliated links for all these micro influencers to kind of sell their stuff. We're going to compensate them with percentages and stuff like that. How is that conversation being led within the people that make the decisions? Is like, yeah, let's give out a whole sector to these people that are kind of moving our product more than we are with our ads and stuff like that.
Yeah, so that happens in their marketing departments. So historically, you know, it's like, okay, we're going to spend in magazines and TV, and the affiliates is like a whole other line item now. That becomes
like a new thing that we've experienced in the past 2 decades, that is like, oh, okay, affiliated market, it's like a new thing, it's a new way to sell. It's like some people have dedicated pages to just affiliated marketing.
Yeah, and I would say if you're looking at the company level, it's just one way that they're spending their marketing dollars. And it is kind of like when you think about why affiliate marketing works, it is that someone's coming to your door, hopefully someone that you trust. It seems like they're using the product too. Companies think that's a good strategy, that you trust the person and that you would then buy from them. But it's not like the only thing companies usually do. It's just one of the things.
But they do add the sector more and more so, because before the links were a lot harder to get in Amazon per se. Like not everybody could have a link that like gives them any sort of money and stuff like that. So is that like a conversation that like, hey, there's a lot of real world people trying to promote our product, we have to have like a way for them to like sell it and stuff like that? That's a newer conversation.
I would say probably like definitely since COVID. But it doesn't it feel like more and more? So companies are just like expanding those type of programs.
I just want to make sure that we give her a big round of applause for the wonderful presentation that she provided us today.
Thank you.
It was such an honor to have you here at FIU and connecting with all our students in the classroom business, and also this wonderful presentation that you provided us on how to be better consumers. So thank you so much for all of that, Jordyn. And on behalf of the Global Learning Office, we would like to give you this little bag as well.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you for being engaged and all the questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jordyn. Just as a reminder, TTR continues again next week. We're going to have a session on creativity meets sustainability. So join us again next week. Jordyn is going to be available if you would like to connect with her after the session. And we also do have food also in the front. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you all.